Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be building out the basic Facebook Messenger app UI or whatever you want to call it. So we have our app bar which has our actions, and this is a custom app bar. We have our search bar, we have the list of our stories, we have the not viewed stories, and we have viewed stories, and we have the list of our conversations. So this is not very difficult to build. It just takes a little bit of time of figuring it out, and if you don't want to spend time figuring out how to build all of this, watch this video and find out. So first let me create an empty Flutter project. Let's call it Facebook Messenger. Okay, now our app is getting created. Okay, so now we are in the main.dart file, and the first thing I'm going to do is remove most of all of this code so we can start pretty much from scratch. Okay, now we don't have anything, we only have our app class, and let me rename this app class. Okay, we only have this app class, and now I'm going to create the home page, but I'm going to do it in a separate file to keep all of this simple. So let me go create new file, homepage.dart, and now let me write the class for our homepage. Okay, so here I've created our homepage and our homepage state where we'll build out the UI of the whole page, and let me just save and close this. And now what we need to do is create a scaffold which is going to have for now an empty body. Okay, now that we have created our almost empty scaffold, I just put some text in there so we can verify that all of this is working. In our main.dart file, we need to create an instance of our home page, and we need to import this file, and that's pretty much it. And now I think we can run our code to see that this works. Okay, now we have our empty app up and running, and you may not be able to see this text over here because it's all the way to the top here. You can see 1, 2, 3 that it overlaps with this carrier text, but it's still there. So the first thing we need to do is build out the app bar. So since the Facebook Messenger's app bar is a little bit more custom than other app bars, it first has the profile image, then it has all the actions at the end. I'm going to build out a custom widget, which is not going to be an app bar widget specifically, but a standard stateful widget, because when I tried to build out this UI for the first time myself, I really had a lot of difficulty creating it just the way I wanted with the standard app bar. So if any of you have a way for me to customize this with the standard app bar, let me know down in the comment section. I'd really love to see how to do that, but when I was messing around with it, it just wasn't working. So I'll create a new class which is going to be called a messenger app bar, and there I'll build out the whole app bar. But the first thing I need to do is make a folder which is going to be called widgets, and that's actually not .dart. What the hell am I doing? Just widgets, and then we add a file which is going to be called messenger app bar.dart. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing I did for the homepage. I'm going to create the stateful widget and the state for that stateful widget. Okay, so here we have our messenger app bar, and the first thing we need to do is let the user pass in the title and the actions that that app bar is going to have. So let's do that real quick. Okay, now we're letting the user of the class pass in all the required parameters, and now we need to build out the app bar. So the way we're going to build it is we're going to have a row which is going to have its child widgets. It's going to be first the profile image of the user, then the title of the app bar, and then it's going to be the two actions that we have. So let's build that out real quick. Okay, so first we have our user profile image, and it's going to be a network image, which means it needs a URL, and for the simplicity's sake, I'm just going to hard code the URL to be the constant global variable, and then we're going to use that because I really don't want to have any hassle of passing it in and whatever, because I really want to keep this simple. And if you're building out a more custom app, then definitely it should fetch from the API or whatever, but here I'm just going to paste in the URL and we're going to fetch from that. Okay, so now we have the image URL, and let's copy the name of the variable and paste it in here. So let me now save this and see what we got. Okay, now that we have put in this image URL, when we refresh the app, nothing happens because we are not using this app bar anywhere. So let's go to our homepage class and define the body to be a column of all sorts of elements, and one of those elements, actually the first one of those elements, is going to be our messenger app bar. And now we need to import this file, And now we need to provide the title and the actions. For now, I will only provide the title since it's the only required parameter, and I'm just going to call it chats. And now let me save this. And here we have this little image in the top left corner. So the first thing I think we should do is add padding to this app bar so it does not overlap with this over here. And I'm going to add the padding to be from the top and from the left. Okay, so now this looks better. Next thing we need to add is the title for our app bar, and we're going to do that using the text widget. Okay, so here we added the text for our title, and it really doesn't have much. It has the title itself as its text. It has this text style which says that the color is black, that it has a little bit tougher font weight for it to not be completely bold, but to be somewhat bold. And it has the font size of 26, so it's nice and big. This is the result of that. So this text is pretty similar to the Facebook Messenger UI. It's not the exact font, but it's close. And the first thing we need over here, since our image and text are too close together, let me add a simple container which is going to have a width of 16 maybe, and we add a comma. Okay, now this looks a lot better. Okay, so you may see if we go on like this method is going to be over 100 lines long, which is definitely not good and definitely not clean, and it's very hard for maintaining, and even while we're writing we constantly need to see where we are in this tree. So I'm going to extract this widget into its own class, which we're going to call app bar around the network image or whatever. So let me cut this code out and create a new widget over here, which we're going to call app bar round network image.dart. And now I'm going to create the class for it. Okay, now in this build method we're just going to paste the code that we cut it out from there. Remove this comma, and as you can see we need to provide the image URL for this class, so let's do that real quick. Okay, and now we provided the parameters for our app bar rounded network image, and the only thing we need to do is now call that over here. So if we save this file, you can see it disappears because we removed the whole widget. And now let's just call that app bar round network image and import this file and just pass in the image URL. And as you can see, our code is getting a lot cleaner. And another thing I want to do is cut this code and put it into its own class, and we're just going to call this app bar title. And we do same what we did for our network image, just paste the code that we cut. And same as our network image, it needs a parameter which is going to be called here title. So we add the final string title, and we add a constructor for this app bar title class, and we pass in our title. Okay, now if I go to this file and save this, our title disappears because we removed that code. And now let's just call app bar title and set the title to be title and import this file and save this, and that's it. This cleaned up our code a whole lot. Okay, the next thing we need to add is our actions. So the first thing I should do here is pass in the actions from our home page and then implement how to display all those actions so we can see that immediately. So let's go to our home page and pass in all of these actions. So the chats window has two actions, which is like write a message and take a picture or whatever. So we're just going to pass in two icons which would have that picture and write a message, well, icons. Okay, so here we are passing that in, and you can see if I save this, nothing changes, but it really doesn't matter. So nothing happens because we are not using any of these actions over here. So now let's implement displaying our actions. Okay, so the thing I'm going to do here is just add another row and set its children to be equal to actions. Since the actions attribute is a list of widgets and the children needs to be a list of widgets, this is going to work without any error. And if I save this, this should reload and show me what I want to see, but for some reason it doesn't. Okay, maybe it's not showing actions because this is final. Okay, so what really was the problem here is me having this title and actions being final, and by removing that I solved the issue. And now what we have is our actions being two close together, having no space in between. And we could handle it in our homepage by adding a container between every single icon, but the spacing and the displaying of the actions should be handled by the messenger app bar class and not by the user of that class. So what we're going to do here is use the map method on this actions list in order to wrap each and every one of those actions with a container which is going to have some padding. And as I said, we're going to use the map method for it. Okay, so what does this map method do? It goes through each and every one of these. It goes through each and every one of the members of the list, and it creates a new list which is going to be a customized version of the old list. So let me write the method, and I hope this will make sense to you. So we have our map, and we have our function, we have our action, and we're returning some padding. So we just added padding to every single action and assigned that to be the children of our row. So when I save this and it reloads, it added padding to every single child, and now our children are evenly spaced out. But now we have a problem. How are we going to put these actions to the right and not have them hanging around with the title on the left? Well, for that we're going to use this parent row, but we also need to put everything that's going to be on the left in another row. So let's do that real quick. Okay, now I wrapped all of this in a row, and as you can see, still there is no change. And that's because we need to set a certain attribute on our root row to be, I think it's main axis alignment, and it's going to have this space between. And what this did right here is added the space between each and every one of its children, which happen to be these two rows, so they can be spaced out throughout the whole width of the widget, if that makes any sense to you. So now the one thing I think we need to add is padding over here, so let's do that real quick. Now I save this, and we have padding for our actions, and that's pretty much it for the app bar. There's nothing more we need to add. Okay, so now that we are done with our app bar, we should add the stories list. But here I think that this is a little bit too much clutter, so let me cut this out and make a new method over here, which is going to be build app bar, and just return all of this. So we have this being a little bit cleaner, and call this method over here, so we can get basically how our tree is constructed. So the next thing we need to add is the stories list. I know Facebook has some crazy way it combines all the people that are active and the stories and whatever, but to keep it simple, I'm just going to add the stories. Okay, so first let's create a new class which is going to be called stories list, and that's where we'll display all the stories that we have. So let's create a new file, stories list.dart. I have this stories list and extend stateless widget, and I'm going to import the material package, and we're going to have this build method. Okay, so what is our stories list going to have? It's going to be a horizontal list view which is going to contain all the, well, stories that we have. So let me build out a simple list view of texts and make it horizontal so we can make sure that this will work. So let's go list view.builder and add the item builder, which is going to have a context and the index. And now I'm going to create a separate class which is going to be called stories list item, and have that over here and return some text. And now we're going to return a stories list item. Later we are going to pass some things into the constructor, but for now this should be okay. And now we don't have anything because we didn't set the item count, and let's set it to 21. And let's call the stories list over here. Let's create an instance of it and import the file. Let's wrap our stories list with a container, and we're going to give it a fixed height of 100. I need to set the orientation, I think it's called. No, it's not. Scroll direction to have it to be horizontal, and save this, and maybe this will work. But no, the app crashed, I need to restart it. And we have our horizontal list view. So now let's build out how our list items are going to look like. Okay, so the two main components of our stories list item are going to be the image, which is going to be the profile image of the user that posted the story, and the text, which is going to be below it. But we're also going to need to wrap that image in a certain, probably box decoration or something like that, to have the border of it show that it's an unviewed story. So let's first create that image. Okay, so now we have a list view of all of these images. What I did is added a container which has a fixed height and width of 60 and added a box decoration which will have a shape of circle. So we have a rounded image, and I added our image with the image URL. I cut this from our app bar class, I think, and pasted it in so we avoid passing in all the different URLs and whatever. So I think that's pretty much it. The next thing we need to do is add the text below it, which is going to show the name of the user. So let's do that. Okay, and now we have all of the names that we need, and I think we should add a little container between these two just to separate them, and not 16 but to be 8, and save it. No, 8 is too much. Let's say 4. Yeah, 4 seems fine. So we have all of the names of the users and their pictures. Okay, so the next thing I think we should do is to see if a certain story is viewed or not. Because if a certain story is already viewed, it does not have this blue border around it and the text is not bold. So the thing I think we're going to do is pass into the stories list thing bool is viewed, and we're going to pass that in through the constructor. And now we're going to use this to determine what the style of our list items should be. So let me extract this text style into its own method, which is going to be get text style. And if our story is viewed, then we're going to return our, actually if it's not viewed, then we're going to return this, and if it's viewed, then we're going to return a different text style, which is going to be this, pretty much the same font, only that this is going to be gray and it's not going to be bold. And what's the problem over here? Why am I, oh, because this is a stateless widget. Yeah. I thought that this was just the state of the thing. Let me fix that real quick and fix this, and that's it, and just call this get text style and failed assertion boolean. Yeah, and now when we're using the stories list item, we need to say if it's viewed or not. So let's say if index is less than 10, return stories list item is viewed to false, and if it's equal or greater than 10, then we're going to return that it was viewed. Let me save this right now, and now it has the different font, but we still have this border thing. So let's see how we're going to get rid of that. So let's just extract this to its own method, get border, and if it's not viewed, return this, and if it is viewed, return null. And just call this over here, save it, and this pretty much took care of our problem. So here, as we scroll through, we can see that we successfully implemented this. And the only thing I want to do is add some padding to the top and the left. So let's do that real quick. So the stories list, add padding, and save this, and I think 16 is too much. Let's set this to 8, and this looks fine. Okay, now I think we should build add to your story button, because in Facebook Messenger, whenever you have all of these stories, the first item in the list is going to be a button for you to add to your own story. So let's see how are we going to build that out. But the first thing I'm going to do is create a new file, which is going to be add to your story button, and now let me create the class for that. Okay, now that we have our add to your story button class, the way we're going to build out this widget is very similar to how we built up this stories list item. It's just going to have like a container which is going to have a round box decoration, but here it's going to have a nested icon which is going to be the plus sign and not the image with the border, and the text is going to be same like here, and that's pretty much it. So let me build that out real quick and then I'll show you. Okay, so here I've built out the add to your story button, and it's a simple column which, as I said, is a container with the same width and height as our stories list items, but it has this box decoration which is the circle, and it has a child which is a simple icon. And then this I think should work, but I need to put this into our homepage. So if the index is less than 10, but we need to add another condition. If index is equal to 0, then we return add to your story button. Let's import this file, and this should work, I think. Something isn't working. Oh, I need to save this file. And now this is working. Only problem is that it has a little padding problem. So let me solve that real quick. Okay, now they're spaced out pretty nicely, and we have this add to your story button. Okay, the next thing we should build is the list of our conversations. So let's first create an empty file which is going to be conversations list. Okay, now that we have our empty file, let's now create the conversation list class. Okay, now that we have our conversation list and our conversation list state, let's see how we're going to build this out. So since this is a list of conversations, we should have a list view. So let's build that out, a vertical list view with just some text. Okay, now that we have this list with just a text widget, you can see nothing has updated in the UI yet because we're not using this conversation list anywhere, and that's what we should take care of over here. And let's import the conversation list, save. We should wrap this in an expanded widget. Okay, now this works. Okay, now we need to build out how our conversation list item is going to look like. So I'll just create a class over here which is going to be conversation list item. Okay, now that we have our conversation list item and conversation list item state classes, we need to build out how our conversation list item is going to look like. So we're going to have a row which is going to have our image, and then it's going to have probably a column of the name of the person and the latest message, and I think that will be pretty much it. So let's create that now real quick. Okay, so we have our row. Now we need to build out our conversation image. That's going to be a round image, and for that we'll use the container and the box decoration class, like we did for our app bar and for our stories list. Okay, as you can see, the drill is pretty much the same. We have a container which has a box decoration of circle shape, and that has a decoration image which has as its child a network image, and then we need to pass in the URL. And again, I'm going to, where is this located? App bar. I'm going to cut this image URL out and paste it over here, just for simplicity's sake, and this should work. Okay, I don't know what's going on. Oh yeah, it returns text over here, and it needs to return conversation list item. Let me save that, and now we have all the images we need. Okay, so the next thing I think we should do is just add some padding over here so these images are not that close together, and for this not to be pinned completely to the right, so only left and bottom. Save this. Okay, now these are spaced out a little bit more evenly, I think. Okay, now we need to build out the title of the conversation and what the latest message was, and that we're going to put in a column, and that column is going to go into a separate method which is going to be build title and latest message. And let me create that method real quick. And as I said, this is going to be a column, and it's going to have some children. And again, I'm going to extract these into their separate methods. This is going to be build conversation title and build latest message. And our conversation title is going to return a simple text widget which will have some text, and it's going to have a style which will say that the font size is 18, that the color is black, and the font weight is bold. And now we need to put this in here and save it. And okay, this looks okay, but we need some padding over here, so let me do that real quick. Just some padding from the left. 16 is too much, let's try 12. Okay, this is okay, I like it. And now we need to build out the latest message. It's also going to be a text, just with a little bit smaller size, and it's not going to be bold. Okay, so here we have our latest message, and it just has a text style which is color gray shade 700, and we need to call this over here. Save this, and this looks okay. Only thing that this is all aligned in center, and this should be aligned to the start of the here main axis alignment. Okay, no, this doesn't work. Let's try cross axis alignment. Save it. Okay, now this looks a lot better. Okay, the one thing I forgot we needed to add is the time of the latest message. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to move this latest message, and we're going to have a row which is going to have the latest message, the dot, and the time. So this is going to be a row which has some children, and its latest message, it's some text of a dot, and also build time of latest message. Okay, and now let's make that method. It's also going to be just some text. It's going to be pretty much, I think, the same as over here, only we're going to have this, and let's see if this works. Yeah, only we need to add some padding to all of this. I'll just add not a column but a container, which has width of 4 maybe, and a comma, and here too. This looks a lot better now, I think. Okay, right now I noticed we miss a certain widget, and that's the search bar. So let's build that out real quick. So let me create a new file over here and call it searchbar.dart. Make it a stateless widget and whatnot. Okay, now let's build out the search bar. Our search bar is going to have an icon of like search, and it's going to have the text field where we can type everything we need, and we're going to put all of that in a row, and I think that will be enough. Okay, now we build out this search bar, and the one thing we need to do is go to our home page, and we need to use it before the stories list, import this package and save this. Okay, this looks pretty nice. Only thing we need to do here is add some padding from top and bottom. Save this, and the next thing we need to do is have some kind of a container around it, because the search bar in the Facebook Messenger app has some kind of a roundish container around it. It's basically a container which has a box decoration that has a border radius. So let's wrap this in a container and add that box decoration. Okay, now we added this box decoration with border radius, but as you can see, not much has changed because this is transparent right now, and we need to give it some color, and we're going to have some gray with shade 700 maybe. Save this. Okay, and now you can see that this looks a little bit better, only the shade 700 is too much. Maybe shade 300 or 200 even. Yeah, this looks the best. And we also need padding from left and right on this search bar. So let's save this. And okay, now our search bar looks a lot better, but the one thing that's lacking over here, when we scroll in the real world Facebook Messenger app, when we try to scroll, everything scrolls with it, and the stories list and the search bar, but as you can see, this is the only part that scrolls vertically. And since that's the only part that scrolls vertically, that's because this is the only list view. And we should extract everything here to be, and the search bar and the stories list and all of these list items to be in a single list view, and to check if the index is 0, show the search bar, if the index is 1, show the stories list, and if the index is anything different, then show these items. So let's do that real quick. Let's cut this out and make a new method which is going to be build root list view. Okay, and return a list view builder, and it has an item builder which is context and index. And now we check. Actually, let me paste everything here, and we check. If index is equal to 0, then we'll return this. Just let me put this into a new line, return this. And if it's equal to 1, wait, let me just remove this. If it's equal to 1, we'll return this container thing. Okay, now that's nice. And the last thing we're going to return here is this. If anything else we have, but we're not going to return the conversation list because we're going to have nested vertical list views, and we don't need that. We just need the list items. Okay, now let's save this, and nothing happens because we didn't call this build root list view. Save it again, and again nothing happens, and we even get an exception. Maybe we need to wrap this in an expanded widget, I don't know, let me try that. Okay, because the app crashed, I can't do anything, I need to start it again. Okay, I even wrapped this in an expanded widget and still nothing happens, and we get our exception thrown. Let me try and figure out what is wrong with this. Okay, I just figured out what was the problem. I set this conversation list item to be in an expanded widget, and that's why nothing was working. And as you can see, now we have everything scrolling nicely. The only thing I need to add is some padding to these conversation list items, and this is all I think taken care of. And okay, I think that's pretty much it for this building out of the Messenger UI. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.